Hey there wonderful piano teachers, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you around one of my favorite apps, but one that I know intimidates a lot of teachers. It's called iReal Pro. Whether you've heard of it or not, I'm going to help you navigate it today, and we're going to use it to work on chords with our students because that's one of my favorite ways. I picked this up from Bradley Sowash, and it's one of my absolute favorite ways to use iReal Pro and to make chords fun to practice and drill to get students ready for things like lead sheets and all other fun stuff to do with chords. So when you open up iReal Pro, it's going to look something like this, okay? You've got songs, playlists and forums down the bottom in this menu. Now, those are fairly self-explanatory, but the forums is what trips people up and confuses them. Let's do a search just so I can show you how this works, and then we're going to get to those chord practice ideas for your students. Let's say we want to search for the Beatles. We're going to search for Beatles. Scroll past the ads, ignore all of the ad results, and then you've got results that are just from the iReal B website, which is the same thing as iReal Pro. That's all this is. It's just a Google search that is set to only search this website. And this is where you find all the songs you want to import that other people have already created for you. I'm going to go to the Beatles, this big result here, and they've organized all of them here. Let's have Eleanor Rigby. We open it up and it opens in our library, like magic. Awesome. We can play it here. So that's a great Eleanor Rigby backing track that you can change the style of, set at different metronome speeds and do all sorts of fun stuff. We're not going to dive more into that now though, because you're here to get your students practicing chords. And for that we need to import a playlist in a different way, because I'm going to send you a .html file. Let me show you what that looks like when you get it. So you'll get an email from me that looks something like this. And if you tap on this file here, it'll open. Now if it opens automatically in iReal Pro for you, that's fantastic. It does that on my Android device, but for some reason not on the iPad. On the iPad I have to tap on this share or export icon up the top, and I'm going to find copy to iReal Pro and tap on that, and the playlist is now in my library if I go to playlists. So this is what the playlist looks like. It's called the Chord Crash Course, based on the full Chord Crash Course which is found on the VMT site. Now the Chord Crash Course major white keys, this is where I would start with students. And here, if I play it, you'll see what's happening. It's going up the white keys. Okay, so that's how I would have students practice this, with their right hand, their left hand separately, and then hands together. Hands together straight away if they're up for it, if they're ready for it. We can change tons of stuff here though. We can take away some of the instruments, and the instruments will be different depending on what style of music you have. You can change the tempo, and we can also change the style. Now, let your students change the style. That's the most fun part, and that's how they really get a lot out of this and get engaged with the learning. So let's try slow swing. That's at 80. That's what it sounds like. Set to repeat 3 times so they get lots of practice in. I always like to point out to students that the C repeats at the top, just because sometimes they get tripped up by that and they get a little discouraged. So I like to point that out and remind them when we get there as well. Let's try one of the other backing tracks. We've got the chromatic. This is where I would go next, where they're working chromatically up the keyboard like that. Now let's try, oh, it's already on pop disco. Let's try that one out. so that's pretty fun. Let's try another one. Jazz. Let's go with Doo-Doo Cats. This is one of my students' absolute favourites for obvious reasons to do with the name. Let's try changing the tempo on this one though. We'll go down to 140. Still pretty fast. Okay, so once they can do the chromatic chords really well and really smoothly, it's time for the real challenge, and that's to play around the circle of fifths. Because now they can't just rely on knowing the patterns and feeling them out, they have to really know the chords at this stage. And they've done lots of prep, so they should be able to get it pretty fast. We do around the circle of fifths going C, so that they're jumping around like that, and it's still ingraining the circle of fifths in their memory, which is so important. And then we do the circle of fifths, the circle of fourths, or the circle of fifths backwards, depending on the way you want to look at it. So that's the circle of fifths version, and then we have the minors of all of these. Let me play you the minor circle of fifths. There's a minor version for every major version. And let's change the style again. Let's go with some Latin this time. How about a tango? Right, so I think we hear some different instruments there, right? So you'll see these have changed. We've got a bandoneon, an acoustic bass, drums, reverb at the bottom, and then different options here. So you can play around with those, but most of the time I just leave all of them turned up. Well, actually, sometimes I turn it all the way down, apart from the drums, and just use it as a drumming track. It's very handy for that. So that's how you can use these chord crash course play along tracks in iReal Pro, and it really is a fantastic way to get students so comfortable with the chords that they have no problem thinking of them when it comes to lead sheets or technical drills, or when they come up in their music. Make sure you get them interacting with their sheet music and figuring out where the chords are there too. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, if anything still seems a bit mysterious about iReal Pro, then please write to me in the comments or shoot me an email. I'd be happy to chat with you about it. I know it looks a little bit scary when you open it up, but it really is such a great resource and such a fantastic thing to learn for you and your students. So I hope you enjoyed this video today, guys. Make sure to subscribe before you leave and check out the full chord crash course. It's in the Vibrant Music Teaching library. You can find out more about that at vibrantmusicteaching.com/membership or at vmt.ninja.